Hello! In this video, we will be creating an artwork with the inspiration of a fall-time flower, the sunflower. Now, I am looking at an actual sunflower, but looking at my compositions down below, I can tell they are what we call abstract. They are abstract because I have used colors that you don't actually find in sunflowers. For this project, we will be working on a piece of 9 by 9 paper. We're going to do our initial drawing with Sharpie or permanent marker. This is a Sharpie Fine Point. You are, of course, welcome to start your composition with pencil and eraser if you feel more comfortable doing so you can refine. We will be completing our artwork with oil pastels. Now, before I begin my composition, I want you to notice that in these two right here, I have got two different perspectives. This perspective here on the right is maybe a quarter section of a sunflower. This is one right here on the left is kind of in a half or almost like a sunrise perspective of my sunflower. Those are things to consider that you can choose to do in your composition. To begin my composition, I already have inside my mind the perspective that I am choosing to put in my artwork. I'm going to be starting with the center of the flower. Now, you are, of course, welcome, if you have it available, to trace something that is circular if need be. However, for the interest of time, and since I don't have anything the size I would like, I'm going to go ahead and freehand my circle. The next portion of my flower I am going to move on to is my petals. Now, my petals are what we call staggered. I've got some petals that are slightly in front of others. I'm going to kind of look at the shape of the petals, but I can also somewhat change their shape to suit my compositional needs. Now, I want you to notice that an important part of my artwork is that I have done something that's called cropping. I've let my petals kind of go off the page. So when you're working with this, to make sure that you're filling the composition with your flower, no matter which perspective you are using. All right, I have planned out my petals pretty well. Now, if there's anything like little crevices that I want black, I'm going to go ahead and fill them in with my Sharpie. I don't want to use black oil pastel at this point because if I use black, it's going to smear with my other colors. Eventually I can use black, but that would be the last color of oil pastel that I would want to use. My composition is now ready for me to start using my oil pastels. Now, my biggest piece of advice before we proceed is that you be aware of the color wheel. I'm going to be working with colors that are what we call analogous or close together on the color wheel. Now, you can use what other colors you would like. If your petals are going to be one set, let's say yellow, orange, whatever those choices are that you make, just keep in mind that you're working with the color wheel in mind. Colors that are closer to each other on the color wheel blend better together. I am starting off here in the center. I chose the center so my hand isn't going to be constantly dragging over my oil pastel as I work. I'm going to work from the middle and on out, or you could work top to bottom. Just try to mitigate having your hand drag through the oil pastels. Now I kind of outlined my space, but now I'm going to move kind of in a jagged stroke, not a side-to-side stroke, brushing towards the middle of this circle. Now when I've colored, my oil pastel is pretty thick and cakey on the paper. I'd like it to stack up and really seal the paper, trying to not allow any paper color to show through in the areas that I have colored. Now that I've left this off in kind of a rough edge, I can go ahead and add my second color. I'm going to overlap my color. Think of fingers interlocking. That will create a blend. My center is complete. Because I overlapped my colors and let the strokes of the oil pastel essentially have fingers to interlock, they've blended. Now that my center is complete, I feel as though I can move on to my petals. Again, those are whatever colors you would like. Again, I also recommend that they be similar to each other so that they blend better together. Now, instead of me bouncing back and forth between color, I'm going to use one color in entirety before moving on to the next. Still keeping my jagged edge where I leave off with that color. While I'm working, I am also trying not to color or over or diminish my black lines. My next color goes right on top, a little bit on top of the first one, so I get my color fade or my color blend. Notice while I've been working, I've been picking up my paper and shaking off the crumbs from the oil pastel. I prefer to shake it off on the table and then slide it over to the side. Instead of brushing my hand across my paper, I will get smears if I do that. I'm about to the end of my composition. I'm going to pick one color for what I consider the background. Maybe you have a whole bunch of background showing and maybe you only have a little bit. For me, I only have a little, but I'm going to go ahead and just select one color for that background. Now I've got that color for my background. I can stop and consider about my whole composition as is. Now I could leave it with this way if I'd like. However, if you're not happy with the way your black lines look, you can go in with black oil pastel to make them pop back out again. However, do not use the Sharpie on top of the oil pastel. That will ruin the marker. I'm going to go ahead and put in my black lines with black oil pastel. I am now going to consider this composition complete. I find the contrast between the color in the middle and the outside to be very potent. They stand out very well. Now sit back, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate one more composition using different colors and from a different perspective. Now that I've completed coloring my composition, and this time I went with a cooler color scheme, I'm kind of looking at my picture and thinking, I might want some highlights. It seems a bit dark. This is also another option you can use. It is, however, important that you do the highlights before you add any black lines to make those lines pop out again. When doing my highlights, I'm not going to outline every single petal. That's because we're already going to be outlining possibly with the black oil pastel. I'm simply going to go ahead and just add a streak of white to it to kind of add a little more dimension to the petals. Keep your strokes fairly simple, so they don't stand out too much. I'm going to add a little bit to my center. Now I can proceed to my black lines. I'm now going to call my composition complete. Remember in this activity that you're going to try and use colors that are close together on the color wheel for better color blending. These ones right here are obviously more of the cool color schemes. And you can also vary to warmer colors, a little closer to reality. All those decisions are yours. You can vary your perspective and your selection for colored background. Of course, typically when I do the colored background, I pick something from the center, one color from the center. With that said, I'd like you to have your turn doing this project. Please enjoy the activity, and I'd like to see what you come up with. Thank you for watching.